Our next presenter will help us with our goals of increasing club membership. Herb Klotz joined Rotary in 2011 and is a member of the Allentown West Rotary Club, as well as serving as a Zone 32 Assistant Coordinator. Herb's area of expertise is membership, and he has served as membership chair in District 7430 before serving as district governor in 2019-2020. Following this presentation, there will be an opportunity for discussion in a breakout room. Please listen to instructions following this talk. And now, welcome, Herb.
Well, thank you very much, Claudia. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a challenge to follow Jennifer Jones, but I will do my best, okay? So let me share my screen. Now, what we were going to talk about for the next 45 minutes to an hour is about opportunities for growth in Rotary, in your clubs. Now, first thing, before I get started here, I want to encourage you. We are doing very, very well across our zone. Our zone starts in Eastern Pennsylvania and goes all the way up to Maine. We are doing very well with respect to membership this Rotary year. As many of you know, we've been losing membership in North America for quite some time. This year, we have a chance to actually break even in our Rotary zone this year, and that will be a huge accomplishment. So what we're going to be talking about today for the next 45 minutes or so, I encourage you, we don't need to wait until your Rotary year. If there are opportunities this year to continue to build and strengthen your clubs, let's do it. And then next year, let's build on it some more, okay? Now, today we're talking with presidents-elect. Now, I will state to you that you, as club president, will have more impact on whether your club grows than anyone else in your club. I'm going to repeat that. You, as club president, will have more impact on whether your club grows than anyone else in your club. And that's been proven again and again. The priority you place on this will have a huge impact on whether or not your club grows next year. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about growing membership, but not in general terms, but in the perspective of your club. Every single club is different. And I've done many of these talks to many clubs, and I assure you that every single club has different strengths and different opportunities. So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of talk about this from an individualized club perspective. Now, my background is I'm an engineer by training, and I like to use data to understand what are the opportunities, okay? So while I will tell you a few stories today, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is based on data and specific membership data. Okay, but as an introduction here, I want to talk about, let's start off with the first question. And the first question is why do we want to grow Rotary membership? Well, to better serve, we need to grow. Now, the governor, who is governor of our district, I'm from Eastern Pennsylvania. The year before me, her name was Cindy Horniman. Her mantra was more members, more service. A nice, simple mantra, but it's true. The more we can grow Rotary, the more we're able to do. Okay, and as I mentioned already, data will help us identify our best growth opportunities. And you'll see that over the next 20, 30 minutes of the talk. New members mean new ideas and invigorated clubs. And finally, strengthened leadership increases our capacity. Many, many clubs have this challenge. Where do we find our next club president? How do we do our succession planning? Okay, new members provide that opportunity for strengthened leadership in our clubs. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to kind of go through this in 3 steps. And the first part of this is diagnose. So the first thing we want to do is understand what makes your club unique, okay? And understand where the opportunities are for growth. Second part of the talk, the second half, will be about building on 5 attributes of growing clubs. And again, this is based on a study we did of clubs that grew significantly during the pandemic. Okay, so it's data driven. And the third step, which is the most important step, is acting. Okay, and understanding where our opportunities are, understanding why clubs grow, and then using your plan, your goals and plan to take action and move forward. It takes action to grow our clubs. Make no mistake about that. So let's get started. So let's start with step 1, diagnose. So I need to introduce you to a couple of terms, okay? The 2 terms I want to introduce you to are attrition and attraction. Attrition is simply the percentage of members leaving your club each year. So for example, if you have 50 members in your club and you have a 10% attrition rate, that means you're losing 5 members every single year. Attraction is the percentage of members joining your club each year. Same analogy, 50 members, 10% attraction rate, 5 members added. If you have a 10% attrition and a 10% attraction rate, you're going to break even. And the reason we use these 2 terms is because it allows us to compare them directly against each other. Many of us have heard the term retention. Retention is simply 100% minus attrition. We prefer to use the term attrition for the reason I just showed you in terms of the ability to compare them directly against each other. And so, of course, to grow, attraction must exceed attrition. So now the next thing I want to talk about is the membership goal setting worksheet, which I hope everybody has received. I'm not 100% sure if everyone has received the goal setting worksheet for their particular club. If you haven't received it yet, we will get it to you really soon. There were some technical issues with getting this thing out, and I'm very hopeful that everybody has received it. But I'm going to go through it here, and we'll talk about it in general. And then if you haven't gotten it yet, you'll get it very shortly. Now, in the goal setting worksheet, we show you the 5-year history of your club. We show you your annual attrition rate and your annual attraction rate. Now, this is based on July 1st, 2021. So if it turns out that you've added a lot of members in the last year, that's not going to show up in here. But that's good. Let's keep going. Let's keep doing that. And this is a 3-year average. Now, one of the things I want to emphasize here is that we didn't come up with this idea. This work was actually originally done by Zone 33. We're in Zone 32. Zone 33 is just south of us. It's the middle Atlantic states. And they did a study of, well, if we look at past history of our clubs, can we predict the future? And what they found out was, yes, we can. Okay. And when I say that, I say, yes, we can, but there's one caveat: unless something changes. And that something is almost always the leadership in the club. Okay, so I want to encourage you on that respect. This is all about where are our opportunities. So we're going to provide you your annual attrition rate, your annual attraction rate. And then we're going to provide you information about where's your biggest opportunity. Okay, is your biggest opportunity that you have low retention? And Jennifer Jones was just talking about this. She was talking about a revolving door in your club. Okay, is it that you have insufficient new member attraction, or is it neither, or is it both? Okay, so what we want to do is, and again, this is not subjective, this is objective, this is based on your history. Now, a couple of caveats on that as well. All right, if you're a brand new club, this is going to look really good, okay, because you've added 20, 25 members. So if you're one of those clubs, this is going to look really good. If you're a club that has spun off a satellite club in the last 2 or 3 years, well, that's not going to look so good because your membership is going to have gone down, and I won't have a way to figure that out. Conversely, if you've merged 2 clubs together, okay, then it's going to look good because you've added 2 clubs together, and so the numbers are going to look really good. But for 90 to 95% of the clubs, this is going to be pretty close. This is going to be a pretty accurate barometer of what's been happening in your club over the past several years. And as I said, history tends to repeat itself unless something changes. Now, the other thing we've put in here are some recommendations. So based on which boxes are checked up here, you'll get some recommendations. And these are recommendations based on the second half of the talk that I'm going to present today, which is about the 5 attributes of growing clubs. So the example I put here was, well, this club had insufficient new member attraction. So that was their biggest opportunity. So we've put some things in here about member attraction. Okay. Now, your club, it might be new member attraction. It might be, attrition is your opportunity. And it might, as I said, it might be neither, and it might be both. And we're going to talk about that in one more slide. Okay, I promise. So now the next thing I want to share with you is an overall view of the membership worksheet. Okay, so what you can see on here is the attrition, the things I just showed you. But then down below here, there's something we call a membership goal setting calculation that you can do to understand how many new members you actually need to meet your goal, whatever your goal is for membership next year. So we show you where the starting membership is on July 1st. Then we put where you are as of February 1st. And then the next thing we do is we have the estimated membership. That's up to you. Where do you think you're going to be on July 1st, 2022? And I'll give you a hint. We usually lose some members in June. So I'll just let you know that's historic, and that's quite accurate. What's your goal going to be? So in this case, the goal was we want to get to 35 members next year. So your net membership growth then would be 2. You'd be going from 33 to 35. We don't let you change the next number. The next number is how many members you're going to need to replace. And again, this is your historical average. So it helps you understand what's been happening in your club during that last year. And then you figure out what your new members needed. In this case, they would need 8 new members to achieve that goal. Okay. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to be objective and show you where the changes are. Now, the next thing I want to do is kind of talk about some common patterns that we see with Rotary clubs. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plot on the y-axis attraction rate and on the x-axis attrition rate. Okay, so the first category, and this is where everybody wants to be, okay, is we have high attraction and low attrition. Okay, and I call this a growth culture. This is where we want to be. And currently we have about 10% of our clubs across New England and across our zone that are in this category. Okay, and so every district has clubs that fall into this category. Okay, they have a growth culture. We need to build on that. Okay, conversely, if we're in the bottom right corner, we have a high attrition rate and a low attraction rate. Well, that means we're probably losing about 10 to 20% of our members every year. I call that the danger zone. And obviously that's not sustainable. And so we need to do something about that, and we need to do something quickly. And the first thing we need to focus on in that case is engagement. It's absolutely engagement. Okay. So, and I think I said this, about 20% of our clubs right now, and I looked at it for your districts, and yeah, it's about the same. It's about 20% of our clubs fall into that category. So the rest of the clubs, which is most of us, we're somewhere in between, okay? But somewhere in between can be very different depending on the club. And again, that's the point. The point is we need to understand our club and where are our opportunities. So let's talk about three of those. So the first one would be low attraction, low attrition. Okay, so here's a situation where, well, and turnover is not an issue for these clubs. And it turned out, I looked across your districts, about 20% of your clubs fall into that category. Their focus really needs to be on attraction, attracting new members. Okay, and the reality is, you know, when you're in that box, when you're in that, what's the danger? Well, you're not growing and you're not declining in membership. That's great. But the danger of being in that box is every year, on average, your club gets a year older. Okay, so that's an issue. That's an issue that needs to be addressed. Okay. Second, high turnover. This is where my club was. Okay, so my club was the classic example of what Jennifer was talking about before. Okay, we had high attrition in our club, but we were also able to bring in a lot of new members. That wasn't our issue. And so, you know, we had an unfair advantage because I've been doing this analysis for over a year now. And I talked to our membership committee a year ago about this. I said, hey, did you realize that here's our opportunity for growth is to engage our members more closely? And our president took that to heart. And I'm pretty sure that next year we're going to be out of that box. We're going to be in a better position because we're not losing as many members. But the point is we need to make sure we understand where we really are. Okay. And then the third one is sort of somewhere in the middle, and that's a fragile balance. So that's like a 10 to 15% attrition rate, 10 to 15% attraction rate, and about 20% of our clubs fall into that category. I want to make sure that we understand here that, you know, different clubs have different issues. I shouldn't say issues. They have different opportunities, okay? And we need to make sure we understand where our best opportunities lie. And I'm hoping we can do that by providing you accurate information about your club. Now, the next thing, which is equally as important, is, well, how do we set our targets? What's a reasonable target to set for membership growth? Well, first thing I want to do is I want to show you averages. Okay, so these are averages. Rotary International attrition and attraction, you know, we've been 1.2 million members for 20 years, okay? And really, the average is about 14% attrition and attraction across the world. And that's nice, but what's more important is, what about your club, okay? And you know, in our districts, you know, we fall into those different ranges as well. But in terms of our targets and where should we set our targets? Well, if we talk about attrition, and we live in the United States, we live in a mobile society. If our attrition rates are greater than 15%, if we're losing more than 15% of our members every single year, that needs attention, okay? Because what that means is people are leaving our clubs for reasons other than life happens events, okay? So when I say life happens events, when we look across many, many thousands of Rotary clubs in North America, well, a good target in terms of how good you can do, it's probably in the 8 to 10% region, because below that, life happens, okay? And what's life happens? People move. There are, you know, there are business issues, there are debts, there is health issues. That usually is about 8 to 10%. So if you want to target, you know, 10%, that's a good place. If your club is already at 7 or 6, you're probably not going to do much better than that, okay? And your attraction needs to be about 5% greater than attrition. Now, I forgot to mention this previously, but you know, when we look at those boxes, which ones were checked, whether it was the attrition box or the attraction box, by far, and it's not just your districts, it's all of our districts, by far, the one box that gets checked the most is the attraction box, okay? It's the attraction box, not the attrition box. And I want to reinforce that by pointing out that last year, you know, last year was a tough year for Rotary membership in North America. And you might think that the reason for that was because more members left Rotary. Well, that's not what happened. In fact, what happened last year was it was about the same number of members that left that normally leave Rotary. What happened last year was we attracted a lot less members than we had been doing in previous years. So again, this is just data. This is not my opinion. This is what has happened in Rotary. And this year we're doing a lot better. We are attracting a lot more members. I said we're on the path to success, and we need you as club presidents to keep us going on this path to growing our membership and growing our ability, expanding our reach in terms of what we're able to do. Now, so what's the most important opportunity to grow your club? Well, is it high attrition? Is it low attraction? Is it both? Or is it neither? Okay. And if it's neither, I want to emphasize this too. We need to build on our growth culture and strategies, because we really can't sit still on this. You've been successful over several years growing your club. We need to continue that trend. But now, if I stopped here and I ended the talk, you'll say, well, that's nice, Herb. Okay, you've told us where our opportunities are. So what? What are some of the actions that we need to take to grow our clubs? And so let's talk a little bit about that. And then we're gonna talk a lot about that in the second half of the talk. Okay. So if our opportunity is low attraction, okay, in other words, we need to attract more new members. Well, of course, we're going to need to ask more friends and colleagues. Okay. In fact, this year we have a program by President Shekar about each one bring one. It's absolutely critical that members invite friends and colleagues with a heart for service. That's where 89% of our new members come from. So it is extremely important for us to do that. But before we do that, what I like to suggest to clubs, especially clubs that are in this low attraction, low attrition area, right? Step one, we need to look in the mirror, okay? Step one, we need to understand, is our club attractive to who we're trying to attract? So looking in the mirror is a really important first step. And a great way to look in the mirror is the Rotary Club Health Check. So Rotary Club Health Check is a Rotary International tool, and your district membership chairs are all familiar with it. And it's a great way, an objective way to look at our clubs and understand where there might be opportunities to be more attractive. Are we active in our community? Are we visible in our community? And of course, are we asking new members to join? And not just to our meetings. And maybe the first place they want to see us is not at our meetings, it's at our service projects or our fellowship events and things like that. Because those might be a great opportunity for them to see Rotary in action. Now, if our challenge or our opportunity is high attrition, well, same thing. Look in the mirror. Why are so many people leaving? All right. What is it about our club culture that is causing members to leave? And so member engagement may need to be our primary goal. Member engagement matters all around this whole thing. The club experience absolutely matters. But again, where do we focus our efforts? So that's something to think about. If it's neither, I talked about that previously, or if it's both. If it's some combination of both, my recommendation would be start with the engagement. As Jennifer was talking about, start with the engagement, get that going, keep our members that we have, and then focus on attraction. Now, I've kind of set you up here for the second half of the talk, which is about why clubs grow. More specifically, what actions do clubs take to grow? And so this is, again, Herb's, I can't help myself, based on a survey that we did of clubs that grew appreciably during the 2020-21 Rotary year, which was the pandemic year, which was a really, really difficult year for membership. And these clubs used the pandemic as an opportunity as opposed to an excuse, okay? They used the pandemic as an opportunity for growth, okay? Now, where we looked was, we looked in our paired zone. So if you're not familiar with what that is, I told you where zone 32 was. It's the Northeast United States. Our paired zone essentially includes all of Canada, a part of Maine, and all of Michigan. So that's our paired zone. And what we did was, it's relatively simple. We looked very objectively and said, all right, let's find every single club across, so there's over 2,000 Rotary clubs with greater than 5 net growth in membership. And we sent them an 11-question survey. We sent the immediate past president of the club a survey asking them about why their club grew, okay? And we got a 61% response rate. Most people say, wow, that's a great response rate. I'm really surprised. Well, in reality, these club presidents, these past presidents, you know, they were proud of what happened during their Rotary year, and they were more than happy to share with us what had happened during that last year. So we got back the data, right, from these 55 past presidents. And the first question we asked them was, in your opinion, what were the 3 top reasons why your club grew last year. And it was open-ended. We didn't try to lead them or anything. We wanted to hear what they say. And then there were 5 of us on the committee, and we each looked at the data individually. Okay. And we said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to try to bucket this data into different buckets. And, and then let's all get back together again and understand let's see if we come up with similar buckets or whether we have different points of view. So we didn't do it all together. We did it separately first. Then we all came together to look at this. And what we found out was that it took us a half an hour to reconcile our 5 points of view, because we all came up with the same 5 attributes, or I should say very similar attributes. And all of these clubs had multiple of these attributes listed in their top 5 reasons. So here they are. First one, strong leadership. Okay, we've talked about this. I started my presentation to you about strong leadership. Strong leadership is critical. Number 2, these clubs had a plan. They had clear membership goals and a plan. Number 3, they were active in their local communities. They had many events and service projects. Number 4, they were visible in their community. They didn't keep it a secret, okay? People knew what Rotary was doing in their communities. And number 5, and this goes without saying, they had active, intentional member engagement. So what I want to do next is I kind of want to go through each of these 5 attributes in a little more detail. And the first one is leadership. Now, this survey, along with attraction data that we've collected, makes it clear that club leaders have the greatest impact on club growth and success. Now, this impact can be positive or negative. Of course, we want it to be positive, okay? And success usually occurs over time. So one of the things we want to make sure is we're creating a culture in our clubs that we're doing this year after year after year. And strong clubs have leadership consistency, continuity, collaboration, and communication, okay? And the other thing that we did in addition to, the survey was we actually interviewed 7 of these past club presidents, and a couple of them are from Northeast Pets. We asked them to tell us their stories, and so they told us their stories, and then what we did was we took video clips from their stories to reinforce these 5 attributes that we want to talk about. So the good news for you is, well, I mean, I'm still going to talk a little bit more, but for a lot of the rest of the talk, you're going to hear from these past club presidents. So the first topic is leadership. So let's hear what they have to say.
Leadership involves sort of having a vision or embracing a vision and moving your club and the members towards pursuing that vision in a way that makes them feel important and a part of the process.
The leadership is a little bit different, I think, in Rotary than it may be somewhere else. It certainly has to be distributed.
Leadership is all about getting people to say, yes, I will own some specific result, so that they are then leading a particular effort.
It's not my club, it's not the president's club, it's the members' club.
Because of COVID, we have to reimagine everything that we do.
How do you bring people from where they are to a new place? That's the kind of leadership I think we have to have in Rotary.
It's really important in order to do that, that you be able to listen and to be fluid with what's going on with other people in your community.
and we're here for the community. So just constantly thinking about that, to me, that's what leadership meant to me.
Okay, the second attribute was starting with a goal and a growth plan. Membership growth in these clubs did not happen by accident, okay? Excuse me. And of course, they set a goal and they built a plan. And it was very clear from the follow-up questions that we asked that this was part of the actions that they took. So in terms of that, 88% of the respondents, we had 55 respondents, 88% of them stated that membership growth in their year was a top priority. And I've heard that over and over and over again. I've done this survey several times on a much smaller scale. And that's something that we hear again and again. This does not happen by accident. And you as president can make that difference. 83% uploaded their membership goals into Rotary Club Central. 85% of the clubs had a club membership committee with multiple club members, okay? And active attraction by members was a key strategy, okay? So the idea of asking others to join is a key strategy. So that includes members asking friends and colleagues, active follow-up with prospects, as a leader, consistent messaging to club members about asking others. And example of this, just last week, I was doing this talk for Mid-Atlantic Pets, which is Pennsylvania and Southern Jersey. And one of the assistant governors in the room said, well, our current president, Mike, is asking us all the time to bring in prospective members. And, it's really working. People are listening, and they're inviting new people to come and join their service projects and their meetings. So here, let's hear some more from our past presidents.
We made membership a priority during the pandemic year because it happened to coincide with our centennial.
Membership was a priority to me before I knew we were going to be having a pandemic throughout our entire year.
And 3 years ago, we established 4 strategic goals for that centennial, and one of them was to grow membership in our club.
Equity and diversity was really an important aspect of that.
We wanted to diversify our club. Our club was aging like many clubs. We wanted to inject some youth into our membership and attract new younger members into our club.
One of our cultural goals for the year was to be open to every person, opportunity, and idea.
I wanted to make sure that we created a club that people would want to join, people would want to remain in.
We also wanted to improve the gender balance in our club.
Identify very specific people and put them in very specific roles on the membership committee.
I asked members, can you please think about people in your community that you know, that you think might be good Rotarians, and don't just think about it, ask them to join.
As long as you're making plans to make sure that your membership growth happens, I think it will.
The third attribute that we saw in these growing clubs was that they were active in their local communities. They had many events and service projects. And the key word there is many. They weren't just doing 1 or 2 big service projects. They were doing lots of small ones on a regular basis. They seized the moment. I mean, there were a lot of these clubs looked at where were the needs with COVID and how can we help? They searched out areas of immediate need. They partnered with other civic groups. They took diversity, equity, and inclusion seriously. And I'm hoping, I'm sure that at some point during your day and a half of training here, there will be some conversation about diversity, equity, inclusion. That is a key aspect of growing Rotary, okay? And they identified projects that members could work on and were, you know, and they would have passion around, and they had a variety of different projects. But the other important point I want to make is, and that's this last part of this slide here, is that 2/3 of these clubs told us, well, we didn't just do lots of service projects, we also invited others to come and join us, okay? So they didn't do it alone, they did it with others with the idea of targeting new membership, okay? As opposed to, and so my point is that the service projects are the foundation. We've got to be doing service in our communities, and we need to be targeting new members as we're doing those service projects, or at least that's what these clubs told us was most effective for them. So let's hear some more.
The pandemic provided a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to connect with people all over the world.
One of the keys to our success in terms of membership, and all of these things are interrelated, was our ability to partner with some of the other community organizations and not-for-profits.
We took the lead on managing the volunteer sign-up sheets for the mass vaccination clinics that were happening in our community.
We started an Afghan refugee resettlement program, and we actually got our first family last night.
We continued some things that we had been doing. We'd been serving at a local a soup kitchen, Bristol Lodge, for going on 30 years, and we didn't stop that.
We invited guests to our events, both our fundraisers as well as our hands-on community service projects, of which there were many. I think it was 22 events that we had in spite of the pandemic.
I would say on average, we had at least 5 partners, including Rotary, on each of the projects that we embraced.
We have about 50 volunteers, and 2 of them just recently became Rotary members.
The group that we work with in Haiti, we were able to Zoom with them. So in a different way, we were able to connect with the service projects that we were already engaged in other countries.
During the pandemic, we found different ways to deliver food and support that community in need.
That more awareness in the community of Rotary stepping up and being involved in what's going on with our club was great.
So the fourth attribute that I want to share with you is being visible in the community, not keeping what we do a secret, making sure that people know that Rotary is a leader in service in their community. Now, we heard many different ways that clubs made themselves visible in their community, and you'll hear a number of them from the video. But the one that we heard about by far the most, at least through the survey, was the active use of social media. Now, as I said, I've given this talk several times now, and one of the questions that has come up in the past is, well, okay, that's interesting, Herb, but we're a small club. We've only got, 10 or 15 members. How do we grow? Well, it turned out there were several of those clubs in this, in this circle of clubs that grew significantly during the pandemic. And one of them that I want to share with you, and again, so this is a story about one of the clubs, and it's actually it's a club in the district that I'm in. It's the Perkiomen Rotary Club. This club had 12 members, and they were extremely active in their community. All right, so they weren't a 12-member club where everybody was, it was an aging club. So it wasn't an aging club. It was, most of these people were in their probably 50s, I would guess, in terms of age. And they were extremely active in their community. They were doing all kinds of service projects. but nobody knew about them. Well, it turned out that there was a Facebook page or a Facebook group that they could put their community service projects on and let the community know about them. In fact, the president of the club, Hank, told me, he says, well, none of us really had much skill in social media, but we could do this, right? So we could put this information out on this Facebook group, and people started showing up at their community service projects, and then they found out about Rotary and they started to join their club. And Hank's comment was, well, we don't have that problem with social media anymore, because some of the folks that came and joined had that skill, and now we have that skill in our club. And the club grew from 12 to 25 members in a period of about a year and a half. And I'm hoping, we'll see, but I'm hoping that they're on their way to 40, because that's given the size of the community that they're in, that's probably about the right size for that Rotary Club. But it's a great story, and basically they started with something small, and now they've gotten more skills in their club, and now they've got some bench strength as well. So that's a nice story about a small club. So let's hear from these club presidents again about being visible in their community.
We're entirely willing to tell people what we've been doing and invite them to join us and invite them again. So everything we do is open to anybody who wants to get involved.
We wanted to get an article and a picture for everything we did. And there were people very, very impressed with what we did, reaching out to us, interested in joining, or at least inquiring about membership. I think as a result of that too.
As we were doing these projects, we were making lots of posts every week.
We did a PSA with a local radio TV station. That had a big impact. We put posters up around town, primarily letting people know about the program, not so much to raise money.
We were using ambassadors in the community. Where we live, we have a world famous theater, and so we have lots of relatively famous people that live in Stratford. We got them to sort of become our mask ambassadors.
So our members would post and repost, and we'd get remarks and comments and likes.
We've also added some new members who have particular social media expertise and design expertise, and they've really elevated our social media game, if you will, and we're not bashful.
So I think it was important that we were active in social media for the programs, not necessarily just for Duxbury Rotary.
We're just doing what Rotary has suggested we do, and what most organizations are encouraged to do, which is to tell the stories that you have through all the channels that you can muster, as often as you want, through as many different voices as you have.
And the fifth attribute is active, intentional member engagement. We want, especially when we bring in new members, we want to keep them. And we obviously want to keep our existing members engaged. Now, these clubs, they didn't stop just because of the pandemic. They just switched. They switched like overnight from live to virtual meetings. And what we heard from the surveys was it wasn't just Zoom meetings. They would meet in the park, they would meet on the service project. But the key thing was everybody was engaged. They stayed engaged, okay? They had strong meeting programs. They took advantage of the fact that they could invite anybody from around the world to present. And this is another example of a small Rotary club. And this is a club in northern New Hampshire. And this club grew, I think, from about 9 to 18 members last year. And their club president, Bob, had well, he's been a Rotarian for about 30 years. And his experience in Rotary was interesting because he had been a member of a Rotary club that had folded previously. And the year before he became president, they had 12 members, and 3 key members left the club because of life events. So these were things that they couldn't do anything about. They lost 3 members, and he could see the writing on the wall. He knew where this was headed and didn't want that to happen, didn't want to see that club fold. So this club set a goal to double their membership. Now, another thing about his experience was through his Rotary life, he was involved with youth exchange and had hosted a number of youth over the years. And so what he started to do was invite some of these youth from around the world to talk to his Rotary Club about how Rotary had changed their lives. And he told me he invited the leadership of the school district to come and listen to these talks. And the other thing he said was, well, we would normally ask our businesses to sponsor our fundraisers, but that really wasn't happening last year. So what we did instead was we invited them to join a Zoom meeting, pretty low, threshold and they did. And that club has been very successful through engagement in growing their membership. Interesting. So there's many different ways to think about how to grow your membership. But I wanted to share that as another example of a small club that has grown. So let's hear a little bit about engagement from our past club presidents.
Nobody wants to come to a dull party. So the other thing I wanted to do was make sure that we focused on fun.
Every month, I had a Zoom call, which later became an in-person meeting once a month with those new members.
My goal for speakers was to have those who spoke to be entertaining, educational, and informative.
They've sort of formed their own little fellowship amongst themselves. They're now friends, and they go out and have coffees together. And when we do finally get to meet in person, they're going to already know 12 other people in the club.
We made sure they got engaged in their area of interest. And so we made that a priority. And I'd say that was our primary strategy.
I mean, we were very locked down in our community, but we could go for walks. So what we did was to use the focus of the environment to get together in small groups.
We're in the midst of completing our second tree sale, and it was fantastic last year because it was an opportunity to get outside together with each other, meet more members of our own community, and do something good.
We're going to walk along the lake shore. We bought garbage bags and gloves and pickers, and we went out. We wore Rotary gear. We took photographs and we put it on social media.
Invite everybody to get involved with anything that's interesting to them, as much or as little as they want. And when they do, welcome them warmly. And if they don't, invite them again to something else, because the way to get involved with Rotary is to get involved with Rotary.
And the final thing that I want to share with you is, well, if you really want to grow your club and you want to make a step change in terms of growing your club, think about an alternate experience. And we call that in Rotary satellite clubs, but you can call it whatever you want, okay? But it's an alternate, it's another way to be involved with Rotary. We have a club in central Pennsylvania that I think it was a lunchtime club. They added a happy hour. They added 50 new members. Okay, that's a great success story. Okay, what we're doing in our district in East Central Pennsylvania, we have about 4 of these what we call next gen clubs, where everybody is under 40. It's usually a happy hour and a service project. And, they may only meet once a month for a happy hour, once a month for a service project. And they're injecting new energy into these 4 clubs that we have. And it's growing. So that there's lots of different ways to think about alternate experience. It can be a cause-based club as well. I'm going to share with you one more video of a story of a club, a satellite club that was created in Chinatown. And it's an interesting story because it includes membership growth, public image, and the Rotary Foundation to grow, to create a satellite club. So here's Taylor.
One of the things that really made a difference was the institution of satellite clubs, because it gave us the ability to say to people who are interested, you can do this without having to commit to our Rotary Club. You can do it in your own way. So in fact, most of our growth came because we added a satellite club. The reason we have a satellite club is the other piece, which is that we decided to go for a global grant for working in our community in Chinatown. We knew that they were going to need a lot of help, and we also wanted to think about doing a global project at home. We had a plan that that came under economic community development, which was to help the businesses stay open and to help them pivot if they needed to a different business model. Project isn't really finished yet because we still have some money, which is because so many of the things we had budgeted for, people ended up giving to us. The outcome of all this is that by doing that global project and getting ourselves out of there in the community so that the business community really did know who Rotary was and what we did, it gave us validity, and it made people think, well, this is an organization that I want to participate with. And so when we said we would invite the people in the businesses to come to our meetings and to hear things we did. And when we said to them, why don't you consider becoming Rotarians? And they said, well, first of all, many of us don't speak English. And secondly, it's hard to come to a meeting on a regular basis. We said, well, you all can form a satellite club. And they did. And they speak Cantonese when they're by themselves. And they frequently come to our meetings. And of course, we go to their meetings, and we're doing projects together, and we're doing dinners together and fundraising events together. Our hope is we say to them, you know, your goal, your charge is to get enough other people interested to spin off and be a separate club. They were like an infusion of energy and fresh blood into our club. I mean, they just they come with so much enthusiasm that it's made all of us a little more enthusiastic.
So one more point about satellite clubs that I forgot to mention. If you are interested in learning more about starting satellite clubs, past District Governor Diana Nestorova is our innovative club advocate for New England, and she is a great resource to help with that, as well as, of course, your district membership chairs and your district innovative club advocates. So we're here to help. There's lots of different ways to do this, and we can talk. This is happening more and more across our zone. So now, in summary, our 5 attributes of successful clubs are strong leadership, clear membership goals and a plan. We're active in our community, we're visible in our community, and we have active, intentional member engagement. So now, at this point, we're going to go to breakout sessions. And so what I encourage you to do is to think about because what's really important here is, all right, I hope I've given you a couple of ideas that maybe you haven't thought about, or maybe there were a couple of ahas in this presentation, but think about your own club and maybe pick 1 or 2 of those attributes and identify, where's our opportunity, because we can't work on everything, but we can clearly find a couple of things that we can focus on. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And again, I hope I've given you 1 or 2 good ideas. So thanks.
Thank you, Herb, for bringing data to life and helping us to set achievable goals for membership. As a thank you and a symbol of our appreciation, a contribution in your name will be made to the Rotary Foundation.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and thank you.